Okay, amazing. Oh, there I am. Sorry. So thank you, Siobhan. Hi, everybody. My name is Shaena, and I'm an empowerment coach, and I'm here today because I'm going to talk to you about 6 steps that I believe get you to reconnect with your self-worth. So I've been a coach now for just about what's coming up to 2 years. But I've been predominantly working with a lot of people in the sober community. But my self-worth, I actually run a 6-week self-worth course, and I found that it doesn't just apply to people who are either trying to stop drinking or are sober. What was I going to say? So I like to work with women who want to stop coming last in their own life. And what I mean by that is that I speak to a lot of women who are constantly saying yes to like everyone else but themselves. And they are neglecting their own needs, and they just sacrificing what they want for other people. Some of them don't even realize they're doing it. It's just, most people just see it as a way of life, and it's just how things have happened, and they don't believe there's another way. So I believe this happens because women tend to be more altruistic in nature than men. So a bit of a sweeping statement, but I think perhaps as a sex, we are more inclined to be like the nurturing kind, and the caring and looking after others, and the ones that like to serve and be of service and helpful to people. If we think about it, it wasn't so long ago that, I mean, I don't recall it so much, but I know that it would have happened. As young girls, we were told to sit quietly, look pretty, behave, you know, do as you're told, that kind of stuff. And then as you're growing up and you combine that with the things we're taught from our parents, family members, what we learn from friends, teachers throughout school, and all the conditioning that we go through in society, all of a sudden we find ourselves just doing what is expected, what others want or need us to do, or what we think is the right thing to do. And then we also, as humans, have that need to belong. We want to belong, we want to fit in with people, we want to be part of something. So that adds another layer of us kind of wanting to follow and do what everybody wants us to do. We don't want to be the outlier, we don't want to be somebody doing our own thing. We want to be liked, let's face it. We want to be liked, we want to be included. And while we're doing all these things, we are, whether we know or not, whether we realize or not, sorry, we're getting further away from who we are as a person, because we're going along with everybody else's expectations or ideas of who we should be. And then we start to focus on external factors and not on ourselves. So we then go to get to a place where we're not even really doing the things we really want anymore. We're not following our true path. We probably don't even know what that is. We are pleasing others when we're trying to fit in. And the need to belong becomes bigger than our need to be ourselves. And this needs to change. But often we don't realise it until we get to a certain point in life. Now, my experience is that more people I talk to, and from my experience, women tend to get to this point around mid to late 30s and into 40s. And like, you know, people talk about midlife crisis. I used to think it was just a kind of a phrase, but I genuinely believe that you get to this point where you start to question things like, what am I doing? What, like, what is going on? How did I even get here? You know, I speak to women and go, all of a sudden they are, oh, I'm a mum, or I've been doing this for the last 20 years, but I don't even know what I want to do anymore. And that they find themselves really lost. So for the people, there's people that are aware that this is happening, and there are also people that may not be aware that they're kind of losing sight of who they are. They carry on as they are, and they start to mask some of the uncomfortable feelings they might feel with external things. Like, so for me, I was a drinker. I drank to fill that void of not feeling worthy. My lack of self-worth came from not really knowing who I was anymore, losing my identity. But for other people, it might be overspending. It might be they might fill that void with, you know, food or relationships. There's so many different things that people can fall into the traps of focusing on to take the focus off themselves. And they're using these things to make themselves feel worthy because they've just got lost along the way. So I think we have to go back to basics. So it's a bit like having to kind of clean the slate, start over. And this is what I focus on in my 6-week program. So I cover 6 weeks, and each week we go through one of the steps that I'm going to talk to you about now. And when I look back now, it's the journey I think I took without realizing when I stopped drinking and kind of figured out where I needed to be in life and what I wanted, and to reconnect with my own self-worth. So, like I said, a lack of self-worth shows up different for everybody. And whatever that symptom might look like to you, you might be able to relate to these 6 steps in some way or another. And if you can follow them, you can get back to the person that you are at your core. So the 6 steps. Step 1, self-awareness. Now, I think a lot of people, if anybody's here, like I know Siobhan said that she's sober too, and she'll know that self-awareness is this big thing that just suddenly we're like, oh my God, we suddenly become really aware of who we are as people, and we start asking ourselves questions about, well, so much stuff. So self-awareness, I think, is where we need to start, because you can't really change your path, change your direction, unless you know where you're starting from. So some of the questions I ask in this week are obviously, who are you? But more, who are you before the world told you who to be, before your parents told you who to be, before your partner told you who to be, your teachers, your boss, your whatever, people around you, who were you before that? And ask yourself questions like your behaviors, your thoughts, your opinions, your things you do and say, are they learned from other people or are they your own? Like, if you think about it, like sometimes we do certain things day in and day out because we just, and we don't even take a second to think, God, am I even in alignment with this? Does this feel good to me? Am I doing it because it's expected? Am I doing it because someone told me to? Do I genuinely want to be doing this thing? And obviously that's like covers so many different aspects, but we've got to ask ourselves those questions. Did I learn to become this person, or is it genuinely me? I ask a lot of people, like, you know, who are you? They're like, oh, well, like I'm a mom and I'm a sister and I'm a daughter. They're roles that we play in life. Like, who are you? If you strip back all those titles, I guess, who are you underneath that? Who are you? You know, if you didn't have a partner, who would you be? Without your parents, who are you? And I think we lose sight of that because we are playing a role so often in life, and that's when we suddenly get to a point and we're like, oh, actually, what about me? Who am I? So it's about getting introspective and understanding what makes you tick as an individual. And then once you've kind of established that, we go on to self-acceptance. So that's step 2, self-acceptance. We need to accept where we are. We need to accept that up until today, what our beliefs are, our circumstances, the choices we've made up until now. We need to accept the situation we're in, whether we like it or not. Because if we can't accept it, we can't change it. It's like, you can't change something you don't know exists. So you have to look at everything about you. Like, for example, well, I think, you know, the easy example for me would be like the whole going on the sobriety journey. I had to accept it was an issue, otherwise it was never going to change. You have to accept that you have to accept, I think, like if you're in a relationship, in order for the relationship to improve, you have to accept there's a problem. You have to accept where you're starting from, otherwise nothing moves forward. So that is step 2. So it kind of follows on from, well, they all follow on from each other, but that's self-acceptance. And then we go on to step 3, which is self-healing. Now, I've run this course before, and I think this comes a bit of an odd concept to some people because they don't consider themselves to be hurting or suffering as such. You know, you don't actually have to be in emotional turmoil to feel that you need healing. But when we're looking at things like lack of self-worth, it tends to stem from events in your past, specifically your childhood or early years. Not all the time, but predominantly that's what it comes back to. Something that's been said to you or happened a long time ago, and how you took that on as a child or when you were younger has been compounded up until today. And we need to go back to almost that moment and figure out how that impacted you back then, not how it impacts you now. You might think, you know, somebody might have said something to me when I was 5. When I look back at it now, it's like, well, that's not that bad. That's nothing to be worried about. But a 5-year-old me could have taken that on in a whole different way. And we need to go back and kind of heal that. When I talk about healing, it's just about going back and understanding what happened in that moment. I do lots of different techniques. Some of you may have heard of inner child work and shadow work. So I do a bit of that. A lot of it's around journaling, meditation, taking you back to understanding what that version of you was feeling at the time in order to heal that, not healing what is here today. You need to go back and heal the original, like what happened at that time, in order to be able to move forward. And then we've got step 4. So step 4 is self-compassion. And I think we can all agree we're not very good at this when it comes to ourselves at all. We are all great at being kind to other people and telling everybody, you know, it's okay, you tried or whatnot. And we're just not very kind to ourselves, are we really? So self-compassion is about making friends, I think, with your inner critic, that voice in your head that likes to tell you you're not good enough, that likes to tell us that we are to this or to that, or no, you should have done it this way. That voice is there because, although it doesn't sound like a very nice voice, it is there to try and protect us. It's trying to protect us and keep us safe, keep us not doing anything that might, you know, be too scary. So it jumps the gun and tells us we can't do something before we've even tried, because it's just wanting to keep us in a safe space. So we want to make friends with that person, that voice. We want to go, we understand why you're trying to keep me safe. We understand what you're trying to do, but it's okay. And rather than battling that voice in your head, compassion is about understanding where it's coming from and making peace with it. So it's like, rather than, if you're going for a job interview, you don't get the job, your inner critic could be, you're not good enough to do that job, you're a failure, all these things that we would say to ourselves. But the compassionate, what you need to do is meet that person, meet that inner critic part way and go, right, I understand why you're saying this, because you want to not have me go through that experience again. You want to keep me where I am. You don't want me to feel that uncomfortable feeling. But the reality is, you have to try. You did try. You're not a failure. You did something by stepping outside of your comfort zone, and that's okay. What are the lessons you've learned from it? What can you take from it? And you kind of flip it on its head and look at it from a different angle, rather than just the end result of you didn't get the job. And when you look at it from a compassionate perspective, you are more likely to then try again, rather than just go, right, I'm never doing that again. And then we get to a place where, so we become a bit more aware of ourselves, we've accepted what we want to change, what we don't like, what we do like, we've done some healing around beliefs and behaviours that don't serve us anymore, we've shown ourselves some compassion, and we're at a place now where we're understanding ourselves a bit more, well, a lot more, hopefully. So step 5, self-discovery. We've stripped back those conditioned layers, we've forgiven, we've done some forgiveness work, we've let go of things, and it's almost like we can now start discovering ourselves again. Limiting beliefs we may have had, we either understand them or hopefully we've eradicated them completely, and we can start really exploring now what it is we love about ourselves, what we love to do, what we want, and what's possible for us. This is like my favorite part, because I think on any personal development journey, you have to accept that it's going to be a bit difficult and uncomfortable along the way, but you can get through the slightly tough parts. When you get to self-discovery, it's almost like a whole new world opens up, because you get to, I feel like it's getting to start over again. And some people actually do get lost in this phase, because they're like, I don't know what I like, I don't know, and it's like, that's okay, let's find it, let's figure it out. And one way to do this is to go back to, if you can remember, a lot of people go back to what they did as a child, because before we were conditioned and started all the alert behaviors, there were things we did as children, we did because we enjoyed them and loved them, and they brought us happiness, and they kind of just made us excited. You want to go back to those feelings, and sometimes reconnecting with what we did as children can bring that out of us. And it might seem silly, because you think, well, what was I doing as a child? How can I do that in today? Like, it doesn't make sense. I've told a few people this story, but when I started on my kind of journey, just coincidentally, we were doing some clearing out in our house, and I found all these storybooks, like exercise books from primary school. I looked at the date, I was 7 years old, and I've got storybooks just of all strange stories, that like weird, imaginative, crazy stuff going on. And I suddenly realized I loved to write, I liked to write. Why did I stop it? Because somewhere along the line I decided I was going to go into a more science background, and then, you know, I just completely dropped that whole artistic, creative side of me, just disappeared. I don't know how, don't know when it happened, but I kind of found it again, and I latched onto it, and I've incorporated that into what I do now. I love to write, like the content I put out around my business. I write for other platforms, I've written blogs, I want to write a book, and that kind of stuff has, you know, I've connected to my joy and what I love again, passions. That's what you need to look for, is passions. We all have had passions that are probably got put to the side because we don't have time, or, you know, if I had time, or if I had more this, more that, I would love to do this. Those are the things we need to be getting back out now in the self-discovery phase, because they are there, we've just forgotten about them. I was just trying to think of something else then that's a really good exercise. That, yeah, and another good exercise is thinking about things you do when you lose track of time. That is a really good kind of pointer to something that you love, because when you are in that moment and you're doing something and time is just flitting away, that's the kind of stuff that like lights you up inside. That's what you would have done as a kid. You know, you've gone out to play with your friends, you haven't got a clue what time it is, and your mum's calling you back in for your dinner, and you've been out for 5 hours and you didn't realize. That kind of stuff, that's what you need to be looking for. And it is amazing that when you find that part of you again, that creative explorative explore, whatever the word is, that part of you surfaces, and you start to see more possibilities. You start to see more things that, things that are possible for you, and your vision changes. And it's not about just going out to work and not just getting food on the table, or just not doing the day-to-day mundane stuff that, yes, some of it, most of it has to happen. There is much more to life. We've just forgotten it. We've lost sight of that. When we lose ourselves, we lose sight of that. And the final step is, of course, self-love. Without this, we would undoubtedly just end up at the beginning again, because we have to show ourselves the love. We have to prioritize time for ourselves. We need to establish boundaries so we can protect our energy. We need to give ourselves the love and care that we need, because really, as much as you can get it from other people, they're never going to understand what it is you need more than you do. So you have to give it to yourself first. It's great if you get it from other sources, but if you can't give it to yourself, it's never going to be enough. It has to come from you first. So I believe that these 6 steps are the crux of any self-development journey, and will help you to reconnect with your self-worth. I also think that we're always going to be coming up against things. However much self-development, personal development work we do, we're always going to be hitting little barriers and challenges. But I think if we always go back to these 6 steps, it's like a rinse and repeat. You can go back and ask yourself the questions at self-awareness stage, or acceptance, or do I need to go back and do a bit of healing here? Do I need to be a bit more compassionate? It's something that once you realize the little steps, it's like, oh, I can do that again, I can do that again, and it works. It just continuously works. So thank you for listening. If you're interested in finding out more, you can get in touch with me. And my next Soulful Self-Worth course actually starts tomorrow. So if you are interested, there are some spaces left. And in that, we have a week module for each step. I do lots of journaling exercises, coaching exercises, visualizations and meditations. There's a workbook. There's loads of stuff. We dig deep. And there's obviously live coaching with me as well. That's part of the program. So if that's something you're interested in, please do get in touch. You can probably find my details via the IPHM website or through this Facebook page. Other than that, thank you for listening. Thank you, Siobhan. Thank you, IPHM. And if anyone's got any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Oh, thank you so much. That was amazing. Has anyone got any questions? Has anyone popped anything in the chat? I'll just check. No.
I don't think so.
I have a question.
Go on then.
So what inspired you to become a coach, basically?
I mean, it was going through all these things. My drinking became fairly bad from when I turned 30. I got to that point where I didn't know who I was anymore. I was trying to cling on and belong in places that I didn't belong in, desperately trying to find my place in life. But how do you do that when you don't know who you are? And I was so lost. I had no self-worth that I just filled everything with alcohol. And when I got to the point where I knew that had to stop, that's when my journey began. And I got a coach. I started reading all the books. I went on this amazing journey. And I think from stopping drinking to, like, say 12 months down the line, I completely changed my world. I decided I trained to be a coach. I joined Be Sober as an ambassador. Now I'm like a head coach for them. My social circles changed. Everything about my life had changed. And I suddenly thought, this is possible for anybody. It doesn't matter where I just see so many people sat thinking, oh, I can't do that, it's too late for me, or it's too difficult. it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but if you're not happy where you are, if something's not right, you can change it. And when I realized that, for me, I was like, oh, it's like this, I just have to tell everybody, and I want to show everybody that it's possible. And that's why I was like, I have to be a coach. I want to just kind of scream it from the rooftops that you do not have to sit and stay in a place where you're unhappy, or, you know, you're just not feeling good about yourself. You get to change that. You get to choose a different path. And yeah, so that's why I went, because it just lights me up. I love it so much, just to be able to show people what's possible.
No, you can really tell. It's amazing. My other question is, like, what is your favorite thing about being a coach, or what is your favorite like element of what you've shared? Like, what's
it is that when people start, when I give people almost that space or opportunity to dream big. And I know it sounds a bit silly, but we don't allow it. We don't allow it because we don't think it's possible. But would I have thought this was possible 2 years ago? I didn't even talk in a group of friends. I would be the one at the back who just go along with everything else. Like, this world that I have created now, I couldn't have imagined, but anything's possible. And I love to show people that if it's in your mind, if you've got a vision of it, you don't think these things up unless you think there's a possibility there. Like, you wouldn't. And I want people to know that, you know, we can take steps to kind of get as close to that as possible. Like, I wouldn't have imagined this for me at all. Like, I was so far from this person that is here today. So I just know that it's possible for anybody. Just got to believe in yourself.
That is amazing. I feel like so like inspired. Thank you so much for sharing. Has anybody else got any questions? Does anyone, you can turn off your mic or pop anything in the chat. I'm going to turn the live off on Facebook, but thank you so much.